She had been cleaning the lobby floors when the CEO overheard her speaking Mandarin, Spanish, and French fluently. What unfolded afterward astonished the entire organization. Most employees barely acknowledged the janitorial staff at Hallberg International. Not from cruelty, simply routine. They arrived after business hours, wheeling carts, emptying waste bins, sanitizing meeting rooms, fading into the surroundings like background noise. It was Monday morning in central Fort Worth, Texas, and the corporation's entrance lobby hummed with footsteps echoing on tiles, individuals tapping smartphones, discussing project timelines, and gripping coffee cups as if they contained solutions. Jonathan Kellerman, the firm's CEO, was midway through his journey from the parking structure to the 18th floor executive offices when he detected it. A voice, though not merely any voice. Articulate, precise, and flowing through a dialect he hadn't encountered since his previous trip to the company's Shanghai branch. Mandarin. It halted him completely. Not because it was Mandarin, but due to the speaker's identity. He looked around, assuming perhaps one of the global sales representatives had arrived early. Then he noticed her, a woman wearing a maroon custodial outfit, her cropped braids secured in a ponytail, positioned near the digital lobby information display. She was engaged in dialogue with an elderly gentleman in a dark blazer and thick-framed eyeglasses, who appeared bewildered yet grateful simultaneously. She gestured calmly, her tone gentle and confident, guiding him toward the elevators. Kellerman squinted. He'd observed her previously, moving through the corridors after lengthy meetings. Always courteous, consistently quiet, never establishing eye contact unless addressed. He didn't even recognize her identity. Yet here she stood, seamlessly interpreting and explaining facility directions in a language most Americans couldn't even articulate properly. He moved forward slowly. As he approached closer, she concluded the Mandarin discussion and faced a courier holding a clipboard. She spoke, smoothly transitioning into Spanish. The delivery person paused. Gracias. Subsequently, just as naturally, she addressed a supplier standing close by, examining a set of incorrectly labeled containers. She told him in French, indicating with a subtle smile. Kellerman's jaw tightened slightly, not from irritation, but from something different, something more constricting, a hint of remorse. He'd operated in international logistics for more than 20 years, managed global expansions, employed interpreters, developed cross-cultural educational programs. Nevertheless here, within his own facility, the most linguistically talented individual he'd met in months, had been sanitizing restrooms just 2 levels down. He approached, more intrigued than authoritative. Pardon me. She turned toward him, surprised but composed. Yes, sir. He smiled faintly. That was Mandarin, correct? Yes, sir. You speak it perfectly? Yes. And Spanish, French? She confirmed. Additionally, Portuguese, German, Arabic, Italian, Swahili, and I comprehend Latin, though I don't really consider that. He stared. You're informing me you speak 9 languages? Yes, sir. There was no boastfulness in her manner, no conceit, just honesty. Direct as a carpenter's level. He gazed at her momentarily, attempting to process the reality that a custodian in his facility, a woman who cleaned floors silently each evening, was a living international interpreter. What's your identity? He inquired finally. Denise Atwater. Miss Atwater, do you have a few moments available? Her eyebrow lifted slightly. Currently? Yes, I'd appreciate speaking with you in my workspace. He observed the hesitation. Not exactly fear, just that instinctive response people develop when they're accustomed to being overlooked or undervalued. She gradually agreed. Very well. He activated the elevator control, maintaining the entrance open as she entered. Within the lift, quiet settled momentarily. I've been employed here for 13 years, she mentioned suddenly as they ascended toward the executive level. He faced her. Never imagined I'd be welcomed upward. He offered a small, reserved smile. You might be amazed how rapidly circumstances can transform, though he had no concept just how dramatically everything was about to shift. Not for her and not for him. The elevator chimed. Denise exited first, her footsteps silent on the polished hardwood flooring of the executive corridor. It smelled like citrus and leather. Wealth if you needed to assign a fragrance to it. Kellerman's secretary glanced up surprised at seeing Denise beside him. He didn't clarify, simply nodded for her to allow them passage. Once within the glass-walled workspace, he indicated a chair opposite his desk. "Please be seated." She sat cautiously, clasping her hands in her lap, eyes scanning slowly across the room. She wasn't awed, just attentive. A large global map displayed behind him, each nation marked with colored pins. On the side table, a set of espresso vessels, a photograph of his 2 daughters, and a dusty recognition from a trade gathering in Brussels. Kellerman positioned himself across from her, leaning slightly forward. "So, Denise, I'll be direct. I didn't anticipate having this discussion today." She provided a small acknowledgement, her bearing steady, her expression neutral. "But I just witnessed you speak 3 languages like you were operating switches, and I need to comprehend how does someone like you end up employed here cleaning surfaces?" For a moment she didn't respond. Her eyes moved toward the window, then returned to him. "You have time for the reality? I wouldn't have inquired otherwise." She exhaled. "Very well then." She rubbed her palms together as if preparing the words. "I was born in Toledo, Ohio, sole child. My father was a pipe installer, my mother a nursing assistant. They didn't possess much, but they labored diligently. Promoted education like it was faith. I received a complete scholarship to Kent State. Studied linguistics, was partially through a master's when my mother became ill." She stopped. "I returned home to care for her. Then my father died from a stroke 6 months afterward. Everything collapsed after that." She tilted her head slightly as if reviewing the memories before expressing them. "I had a child, no funds, no partner who remained around. So I worked whatever I could locate. Supermarkets, care facilities, temporary positions. Eventually, a janitorial supervisor here offered me evening hours. It allowed me to collect my daughter from school, cover the electricity bill. That's how I arrived here." Kellerman observed her. No blinking, just listening. "But the languages, I didn't cease learning. I obtained textbooks, listened to recordings, read publications in 5 different languages, just to remain sharp. It's what I do. It's the only activity I do that makes me feel like I still have value." Her voice didn't falter. It wasn't practiced or flowery, just plain. "Most people never inquired," she added. "They observed the uniform and presumed." That final word lingered in the air. Presumed. Kellerman reclined in his chair, the impact of her narrative settling into his chest like a stone. She cleared her throat. "Listen, Mr. Kellerman, I'm not sharing this to make anyone feel guilty. I'm not resentful. Life occurred. I did what I needed to do. I still do. But you asked, and that's the response." He breathed out slowly. Denise Atwater was intelligent. That much was clear now. But she wasn't requesting sympathy or even assistance. She was providing the truth. Clean, clear, and somewhat heartbreaking. "You ever consider doing something different?" he asked. She gave a small shrug. "Sometimes, but it's difficult to aspire when your rent's overdue." Silence returned again, but it was different now, heavier, full of something unspoken but powerful. Kellerman reached for his notepad, wrote down a few lines. "What are you recording?" she asked, her voice still calm, but somewhat curious now. He looked up at her. "Concepts?" But one concept in particular was already developing in his mind, and it wasn't minor. The discussion remained with him all day, even during budget reviews and supplier calls. Jonathan Kellerman's thoughts kept returning to that morning. To Denise Atwater, her composed voice and the quiet manner she'd mentioned 9 languages like they were insignificant. That kind of fluency didn't just occur. It required years of discipline, curiosity, and dedication. Around 3:45, he departed the executive level and took the elevator down to the building's service area. He wanted to observe something personally. Down there, the atmosphere was warmer. The walls were off-white, marked from carts and boots. He passed maintenance crews, rest areas, stacks of bottled water, and finally reached the custodial storage room. He spotted Denise through the open entrance, refilling microfiber cloths on a metal rack. "Mind if I disturb you again?" he asked, stepping inside. She turned slightly startled. "You came down here?" He smiled. Couldn't stop considering our conversation. Listen, I have a request to make. She wiped her hands on her shirt. What kind of request? There's a meeting upstairs. A group from the Sao Paulo office arrived early and our interpreter cancelled last minute. Can you assist? She hesitated for only a moment. Portuguese? Yes, I can handle that. Minutes later, they were in conference room 4C. Four Brazilian executives sat uncomfortably checking their phones. Denise entered quietly, nodded, and began speaking in smooth, confident Portuguese. Kellerman watched as the entire room transformed, shoulders relaxed, eye contact intensified. She wasn't just interpreting. She was connecting people, making them feel acknowledged. When one of the visitors made a joke in Portuguese, Denise responded with laughter and a return joke that had them all chuckling. Kellerman didn't understand a word, but he understood connection. After 20 minutes, the meeting concluded. One of the executives turned to him and said in English, "She's superior to anyone we've worked with this year. Where did you discover her?" Kellerman looked at Denise, who was already collecting empty cups on a tray. "Right here," he said. Back in the corridor, he caught up with her. "You ever do professional interpretation before?" She shook her head. "Just assisted people in hospitals, government offices, situations like that. No certification, no time for education. My daughter needed me more." Kellerman nodded. "And where is she now?" "She's 26, nurse in Tempe, paid for school herself, stubborn like her mother." They both smiled, and for a second, it didn't feel like CO and janitor. Just two people discussing life. They returned to the service area where Denise clocked back in. She had 2 more floors to clean before shift change. But before she departed, she said something that remained with him. "I didn't do anything exceptional today." He looked at her, eyebrows raised. "That's not how it appeared to me." She gave him a small smile and walked away. That evening, Kellerman sat in his car for an extended time before driving home. He thought about everything: the pressure to expand the company, the investor meetings, the endless discussions on diversity and untapped talent. All this time they'd been looking externally, recruiting globally, searching for new personnel. But sometimes the treasure's already in your vicinity. And once you recognize that, the real question becomes, what are you going to do about it? The following morning, Denise's badge beeped at the incorrect time. She had just finished wiping down the east lobby when her supervisor, Ron, tapped her on the shoulder with a look that wasn't exactly annoyed, but wasn't normal either. "Hey, Denise, Mr. Kellerman requested to see you again." She blinked. "Did I do something incorrect?" Ron shook his head. "He didn't specify, just told me to send you up." She cleaned her hands on a towel and followed the same route she'd taken the day before. Only this time, everyone in the building seemed to notice her. People she passed looked up. Some whispered. One of the receptionists even gave her a polite smile like she knew something Denise didn't. When she walked into the executive suite, Kellerman stood near the window, sipping black coffee and staring out at the skyline. "Come in," he said, not turning around yet. She stood quietly by the door until he faced her. "I've been thinking," he said, placing his mug on a coaster, "about talent waste. How many people never get an opportunity? Not because they're not capable, but because nobody looks twice." Denise said nothing. She didn't trust easy praise. She'd witnessed too many people talk extensively and do little. "I want to establish a new position," he continued. "One that didn't exist before, something this company desperately needs, even if we didn't realize it." Now she furrowed her brow. "For what?" "Cultural liaison for international affairs. Someone who can speak the languages, read between the lines, handle visitors, vendors, documents, all the global contact points that we're constantly struggling through." Her mouth opened, but no sound emerged. "You're qualified, probably more than most of the people in our leadership team, honestly. And you've already demonstrated you can handle it with grace, patience, and intelligence." She stared at him, eyes narrowing slightly. "This real? As real as it gets. I don't have a college degree. You have something superior. Lived experience, commitment, and fluency in 9 languages. You think I care about a piece of paper?" She shifted her weight, still uncertain. "Why me?" He looked directly at her. Because I watched you solve 3 problems in 3 languages before 9 in the morning yesterday, and because I'm tired of walking past people like you. People doing twice the work for half the recognition. Denise crossed her arms. You know what people are going to say. I don't care. She stared at him a long moment, then let out a slow breath. I've never had an office job, she said. Never had a you'll learn quickly. I don't have a wardrobe for this kind of thing. I'll have HR send a clothing stipend. She gave a dry chuckle. You thought of everything, huh? I'm trying. A long pause stretched between them. Then Denise asked softly, what about my shift downstairs? Who replaces me? Kellerman smiled. We'll find someone, but no one can replace you. For a long time, neither of them spoke. She looked down at her hands, then back at him. You sure this isn't some kind of favor? He shook his head. This is overdue recognition. She bit her lip, eyes glistening, but she blinked the tears away before they fell. All right then, she said, voice firm. Let's see what I can do. He extended his hand. She shook it. It wasn't just a handshake. It was history being rewritten. But what neither of them expected was how everyone else in the building would react. By Wednesday, the news had traveled faster than the elevator. Denise Atwater, the janitor from the night shift, had been promoted to an executive-level position. Nobody knew the complete story, just whispers. That she spoke numerous languages. That the CEO himself had chosen her. That she might have some kind of secret background, maybe government work, maybe even undercover. The gossip bounced from cubicle to conference room. Some folks were curious, some smiled, said good for her. But not everyone was applauding. In the staff lounge, 2 marketing assistants leaned close over their salads. I'm just saying, one whispered. I have a master's in international business, and I've been waiting 2 years for a promotion. This lady was scrubbing urinals last week. Her friend shrugged. Maybe she knows something we don't. Oh, please. It's Kellerman trying to look progressive. Check a box. That same energy trickled into boardrooms and Slack messages. Quiet resentment mixed with confusion. People weren't used to upward moves coming from outside the usual ladder. Denise felt it the second she stepped into her new office on the 12th floor. It was modest, just a desk, a plant, and a computer she hadn't touched yet. But to her, it looked like another planet. When HR finished onboarding her, she asked if she could keep the night uniform. Not to wear, just to remind herself. That afternoon, she met with Victor, head of international operations. He walked in with a clipboard and tight eyes. Didn't shake her hand, didn't sit. So you're the new liaison, he said like it was a joke wrapped in politeness. Denise looked up. That's what I'm told. You have experience in corporate environments? She smiled. Only from the outside looking in. He didn't laugh. I've got reports from Italy, contracts from our Dubai partners, and an entire vendor issue in Sao Paulo. Think you can manage that? She stood up. I'll need a few hours to review, but yes. Victor dropped the folder on her desk and walked out. Later that night, Kellerman stopped by her office. How's day 1? She exhaled, leaning back in her chair. I've had worse. He smiled. Victor give you a hard time? He doesn't scare me. I figured. She paused, then added, but can I ask you something? Anything? Why now? Why me? You could have just given me a bonus and kept moving. He leaned against the door frame. Because I saw myself in you. She raised an eyebrow. You were a janitor? No, but I was overlooked a lot. I came from nothing. My dad fixed cars in a town no one visits. I worked 3 jobs through college. People thought I didn't belong in rooms like this. Denise nodded slowly. Now you're the one deciding who gets in. He nodded back. Exactly. There was a beat of silence before Denise looked down at the file on her desk. I'll be honest, I'm nervous. Good. Means you care. She looked up again. There's going to be people who hate this. They'll get over it or they won't. Either way, we're moving forward. Kellerman stood straight. You have a story, Denise? A real one. And now you've got a platform. Then he turned to leave. As the door clicked behind him, Denise looked around her office. She remembered the years she'd cried in bathroom stalls during lunch breaks, The nights she came home with aching feet and barely enough energy to heat up soup, the birthdays she missed, the promotions she watched go to people who never even said good morning. She opened her desk drawer and placed the old janitor badge inside. Not to forget, to remember exactly what it took to get here. But this story wasn't just hers anymore, and the spotlight was about to grow much brighter. By the end of the week, Denise's nameplate was mounted outside her office. Black letters on brushed steel. Denise Atwater, Cultural Liaison, International Affairs. It looked official, clean, permanent. Word had gotten out formally this time. The company-wide email hit inboxes Friday morning, sent by Kellerman himself. It was short, clear, and carried weight. He explained her role, her background, and more importantly, her value. He didn't frame it as charity or a feel-good gesture. He made it clear she was the best person for the job. Period. But that didn't stop the noise. Some managers grumbled under their breath. Others softened up once they saw her in action. She navigated conversations with foreign clients better than the software. She corrected mistranslations in old contracts that had cost them money for years. And she never showed off. She just worked quietly, smoothly, better than anyone had expected. On Monday, Denise was asked to join a meeting with a delegation from Morocco. The company's North African expansion had been stuck for months over miscommunication and mistrust. She walked into the room in a soft beige blazer, sat at the table, and introduced herself in fluent Moroccan Arabic. The room changed. You could feel it, the shift. People leaned in. They listened. Because when someone speaks your language, you don't just hear words. You hear respect. After the meeting, one of the Moroccan partners approached her privately. He touched his chest gently, a traditional sign of gratitude. "No one's ever done that for us," he said. "Not in our language." "Not like that." Denise nodded. "You matter. That's all." By midweek, Kellerman made another move. He renamed the company's main training room, where all new hires gathered for orientation and where mid-level leaders held workshops. The plaque outside the door was taken down. In its place, the Atwater Room. No big announcement, no party, just a quiet sign and a shift that meant more than flowers or cake ever could. Later that afternoon, Kellerman stood outside the room, watching as a new group of interns filed in. He heard one of them whisper, "Who's Atwater?" A senior staff member answered, "She's someone who reminded this place that greatness doesn't always come in a suit." That same day, Denise found a sealed envelope on her desk. No return address, just her name, handwritten in block letters. Inside was a note. It read, "I used to think I'd be invisible forever, but today I stood a little taller because of you. Thank you." No signature, just proof that people were watching, people who needed to see what was possible. Denise sat there staring at the words, her throat tightening. She didn't cry. She didn't need to, because that was the moment she realized this wasn't just a job. It was a door. But not every door stays open without a fight. And someone was already planning to push back. The backlash didn't take long to show its face. Late Thursday, Denise was called into a meeting, not by Kellerman, but by someone higher up. Eleanor Craig, a senior board member who'd flown in from Dallas. She'd been with the company since the 90s. Sharp suits, sharper tongue. Denise walked into the small conference room on the 17th floor where Eleanor waited with a stack of papers and a flat stare. "Have a seat," she said without looking up. Denise sat. Eleanor tapped her pen twice. "So, Miss Atwater, I've reviewed your file. You have no college degree, no previous corporate training, and no management certifications." Denise didn't flinch. "That's correct." Eleanor folded her hands. "You were a janitor here 3 weeks ago." "I was." She leaned back in her chair. "Help me understand how someone with your background is now handling high-level international affairs." Denise held her gaze. "Because I speak the languages. I understand the cultures. I've already fixed 2 vendor contracts and cleared a 3-month delay in our Morocco deal. I also helped secure a verbal agreement with our Brazilian partners that legal is finalizing next week." Eleanor pursed her lips. "You think this company should be run on instinct and charm?" Denise smiled slightly. "No, ma'am. I think it should be run on results." Eleanor blinked. That was the first time Denise had seen her hesitate. I don't need to be liked, Denise added. But I do need to be useful, and I am. Eleanor stood and slowly closed the folder. You're a gamble. I'm used to that, Denise said quietly. My entire life's been one. When the meeting ended, Denise didn't return to her office right away. She walked out of the building and sat on a bench across the street, staring at the glass tower she now worked in. So many years she had walked past that building, wearing the same uniform, carrying cleaning supplies, wondering if anyone saw her. Now they all did, and some didn't like it. She pulled out her phone and called her daughter. Hey, Ma, her daughter answered. Everything okay? Denise hesitated, then nodded to herself. Yeah, just needed to hear your voice. You sure? I'm sure. They talked for a few minutes, mostly about nothing. Groceries, her daughter's dog, a new movie she wanted to watch, but just hearing her laugh steadied Denise. After they hung up, she sat in silence. Then she stood up, walked back across the street, and rode the elevator to her floor. By the next morning, word of the Eleanor Craig meeting had somehow spread. And to everyone's surprise, Denise didn't back down. She showed up early, spoke at a team meeting, took a call with the German office without needing a translator, calm, sharp, unbothered. That same day, a handwritten note appeared on the whiteboard outside her office. We see you. No name, just 3 words that meant the world. In the following weeks, something strange happened. People started coming to her, not just for translation, but advice, guidance, confidence. She became the person people went to before they pitched an idea. She'd sit with interns and give them tips before big presentations. And she never talked down to anyone. One of the interns, a shy Vietnamese kid named Bao, asked her, How did you learn all those languages? She smiled. 1 word at a time, same way you will. Denise wasn't just doing her job. She was changing the culture. One afternoon, Kellerman joined her for coffee in the break room. Been hearing good things, he said. She sipped from her cup. Been trying to ignore the bad ones. You're making waves. She looked at him. That a good thing? He smiled. Around here? It means you're doing something right. They stood in silence for a moment. You know, he added, I've been thinking about starting a training program for internal talent, especially folks working non-desk roles. There's probably more Denises in this building. She nodded. There are. They just haven't been seen yet. He looked at her. Want to help me build it? She smiled. Already started in my head. By month's end, the pilot program launched, a new initiative called Voices Inside, designed to give workers across departments access to language training, leadership mentoring, and visibility across divisions. It was Denise's idea, and it caught fire. Eventually, she was invited to speak at a logistics leadership summit in Cincinnati, where she told her story not as a motivational tale, but as a reality check. I was never just a janitor, she said to the crowd. I was fluent. I was capable. I was ready. But nobody ever looked long enough to see it. So the next time you pass someone without a title, ask yourself, what are you really missing? The room was silent, and then it stood, full applause. On her way out, a young man approached her with tears in his eyes. My mom's a housekeeper, he said. And she speaks 5 languages. I used to be embarrassed to say that. Denise touched his arm. Don't ever be ashamed of where you come from. The only thing to be ashamed of is staying blind to brilliance. She walked out of that building taller than she ever had in her life. Not because of the applause, not because of the promotion, but because she hadn't changed who she was to fit the role. She'd brought herself, every layer of her story, with her. And that made all the difference. Never assume you know someone's worth based on what they wear, where they work, or what their resume says. Talent has no dress code. Intelligence doesn't need permission. And brilliance can walk past you wearing a name tag, holding a mop. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or ignored, keep going. The right person will see you. And when they do, don't be afraid to take that seat at the table. Better yet, bring a few more chairs with you.